Huh?
You're sitting still. Nothing is wrong. There is food in the house, warmth in the room, and no immediate threat of any kind. And yet something inside you is restless, uncomfortable, pushing. It wants you to do something, to go somewhere, to find something, though it cannot tell you what. That feeling has a name. You call it boredom, but boredom is not what you think it is. It is not emptiness. It is not laziness. It is not a sign that you need more entertainment or a better phone or a more interesting life. Boredom is one of the most sophisticated and precisely targeted motivational systems your brain has ever developed. It evolved for a reason. It kept your ancestors alive. And right now, in this quiet room, it is still doing exactly what it was built to do. You just never noticed. Here is what boredom actually is. For most of human history, stillness was dangerous. A body at rest was a body not finding food, not scanning for threats, not building shelter, not strengthening alliances, not learning the terrain. In the ancestral environment, the opportunity cost of doing nothing was enormous and sometimes fatal. Evolution needed a mechanism that would prevent your ancestors from staying comfortable for too long. It needed something that would make the absence of activity feel unbearable, so that they would get up and do something, even when nothing immediately demanded their attention. That mechanism is boredom. Neuroscientist Sandy Mann, who has spent her career studying the psychology of boredom, describes it not as an absence of stimulation, but as a signal, a biological alarm. Her research, developed at the University of Central Lancashire, found that boredom is the brain's way of telling you that your current situation is not good enough, that your time and energy could be better deployed elsewhere. The restlessness is not random. It is directional. It is pushing you towards something the brain calculates would be more valuable than what you are currently doing. In a world where survival required constant engagement with the environment, this was a powerful tool. The ancestor who sat still when the threat had passed and food was secured would eventually be outcompeted by the ancestor who got restless, started exploring, discovered new food sources, mapped new territory, built new relationships. Boredom was a competitive advantage. It was evolution's method of ensuring that your ancestors never settled permanently into comfort. The problem is that the mechanism works perfectly, even now, even here. Psychologist John Eastwood at York University conducted a landmark study examining what actually happens inside the brain during boredom. What he found was striking. Boredom does not occur when there is nothing to pay attention to. Boredom occurs when the brain is unable to engage satisfactorily with the information it is receiving. The brain wants to process, to compute, to solve, to build. And when the environment is not offering it anything worth processing, it generates an internal alarm that feels like restlessness, irritability, and the urgent need to be somewhere else. This is why boredom is so painful. It is not passive. It is an active state of thwarted desire. Your brain is hungry to engage, and nothing around it is worth eating. The discomfort you feel is the discomfort of a powerful system designed for constant operation being forced to idle. Now, here is the part nobody tells you. Boredom is also deeply creative. Researchers at the University of Central Lancashire, in a study led by Sandy Mann and Rebecca Cadman, gave one group of participants a boring task, copying numbers out of a phone book, and then immediately asked them to come up with creative uses for a pair of plastic cups. The bored group significantly outperformed the control group, not slightly, significantly. The researchers hypothesized that boredom activates what neuroscientists call the default mode network, the part of the brain that becomes most active when you are not focused on external tasks. This is the network responsible for imagination, future planning, self-reflection, and creative problem-solving. When you are bored, your brain does not switch off. It switches inward. Your default mode network begins constructing scenarios. It runs simulations of possible futures. It replays past experiences and looks for patterns. It makes connections between ideas that focused, task-oriented thinking would never notice. Some of the most significant creative and scientific insights in human history were not generated during periods of concentrated effort. They arrive during walks, during baths, during the specific kind of unfocused mental wandering that boredom produces. Archimedes in the bath, Newton under the apple tree. The pattern is ancient and consistent. Your ancestors did not have phones. They did not have streaming services. They did not have the infinite scroll. When boredom arrived, and it arrived often in the long hours between foraging and the fire, they had no choice but to let it run. And what it produced, when allowed to run, was the accumulated creative output of the human species. Story, music, art, religion, language itself. Boredom, left to do its work, built civilization. The neuroscientist Mary Helen Imordino-Yang at the University of Southern California has spent years studying the default mode network and its relationship to identity and moral development. Her research suggests that the kind of inward, reflective thinking produced by boredom and mental rest is not optional processing. It is how human beings construct meaning. It is how you develop a stable sense of who you are, what you value, what kind of person you want to become. When the default mode network is constantly interrupted by notifications, by content, by the relentless micro-entertainment of modern life, the developmental process it supports becomes stunted. You are not just bored less often than your ancestors. You are developing a self under profoundly different conditions than the human brain was built to expect, and the evidence suggests this matters. Studies on the effects of constant digital distraction on adolescent development, including long-term research led by psychologist Jean Twenge, show measurable increases in anxiety, depression, and identity confusion in generations that have grown up with constant on-demand entertainment. The correlation is not conclusive proof of causation, but the mechanism is plausible. A brain that is never allowed to be bored is a brain that is never allowed to turn inward. And a brain that is never allowed to turn inward cannot build what the boredom was designed to build. There is something else boredom was building in your ancestors that we rarely talk about. It was building attention. The ability to sustain focus on a difficult or unrewarding task, what psychologists call attentional control, is directly related to your capacity to tolerate boredom. Research by psychologist Abigail Scholar found that people with higher boredom tolerance have significantly better attentional control, greater persistence in difficult tasks, and higher overall well-being. The ability to sit with discomfort, to resist the pull of the more stimulating option, to stay present in an unrewarding moment. This is not a personality trait some people are born with and others are not. It is a capacity that is built by practice, by tolerating boredom rather than escaping it. Your ancestors had no escape. Boredom arrived, and they sat with it until something changed. And in the sitting, their attention was trained, their imagination was fed, and their sense of self was quietly assembled. Every time you reach for your phone the moment discomfort arrives, you are interrupting that process. You are not relaxing, you are escaping, and the thing you are escaping from is not emptiness. It is the very mechanism your brain uses to generate meaning, creativity, identity, and purpose. This does not mean you should suffer unnecessarily. It does not mean entertainment is wrong or that modern life has failed you. It means that boredom deserves to be taken seriously, not eliminated, not immediately soothed, allowed to exist long enough to do what it was designed to do. Neuroscientist Marcus Rachel, who first mapped the default mode network in the early 2000s, described it as the brain's most important system for long-term functioning. Not the prefrontal cortex engaged in focused problem solving. Not the amygdala managing threat response. The default mode network activated by rest, by inward attention, by the specific mental state that boredom initiates. The most powerful processing your brain does happens when you stop trying to do anything at all. Your ancestors knew this not as a philosophy, but as a lived reality. The long afternoon hours, the idle time by the water, the quiet moment before the fire caught. These were not wasted hours. They were the hours when the human mind became what it is. So the next time you feel that restless, uncomfortable, push you to your feet urgency that you have spent your whole life trying to escape, consider the possibility that it is not asking you to pick up your phone. It is asking you to think, not about anything in particular, not toward any specific goal, just to let the mind wander into the territory it has been crossing for 100,000 years, building in the dark the things it cannot build any other way. You called it boredom. Your ancestors called it Tuesday. And in that long, uncomfortable, creative, constructive silence, they built everything that came after.
Hmm?